Hi friends, I'm Tammy K. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm excited because we're painting two paintings. We're painting two large blooms. So first of all, we're going to be painting lilacs, which are one of my favorites. They smell amazing and I grew up with them in our family garden. And the second one we'll be painting, it's still a little wet, will be an iris with buds. Also things that we painted, also things that we grew when I was a kid. This book called The Flower Book, it is so big, and here's the iris that we are going to be emulating. We are doing our own composition, of course, but using it as a reference, and the lilacs, which are absolutely gorgeous. So this is linked in the description if you want to pick up a copy. This has helped me to paint large. So if you want to paint large blooms, let's get started. Okay, so today for our lilacs, we are going to be using our 100% cotton watercolor paper, and this is a Saunders Waterford paper. I have my palette here that I'm going to spray down with water. This is a Paul Rubens professional set. I'm usually using this on my videos. And also I've got my paintbrushes here. So I have a number 3/4 inch flat wash that I'm going to be using. I have a number 8 round and a number 2 round. I definitely know I'll be using this one and one of these for the thinner parts, the stems and that kind of thing. So, and also I do have a paper towel for dabbing, and I do dab my brush a lot so that we don't have too much liquid on our brush as we're starting out. So water over here, let's get started. And so I have a really lovely bluish purple here on my palette. And then I'm going to do, I've got this pink over here, and we've got a nice purple that's more of that really rich reddish purple, pinky purple, and I want to do a variety of colors. So I'm going to start doing what I kind of call like scrubbing, I guess, and just pretty light paint. So I'm dipping it, squeegeeing off a little bit of that water. And we've got our lilacs. This book here, I should have explained this before. This is the Flower Book, the Flower Book. And I love it so much because it has amazing blooms and they're large. So you can see it sort of off to the side here. I'm just using it as a light reference, to give me an idea of where I'm going to put my marks. So if we're using this side of this brush, we're going to get a really nice round tip of a petal, which is awesome. And I love that. This is going to give us some pretty and angular marks, which I really appreciate about a flat wash brush. So just vary up your purples. If you're not seeing a big difference, you can always go a little bit darker and just start to put some of those marks down. You can even do more water on your brush and just start to kind of make these really quick sweeping motions. We're putting down the color, so we're not worrying too much about the shapes, you know, the florals per se, just wanting to add a nice background before we put the second layer down, which we will later on. And I'm leaving a lot of white space, just changing up my purples. You can even start adding in some more concentrated purple if you wanted to, just to do a little bit of a wet on wet technique and utilize that. We can take some more water and add and just kind of make it really loose. And right now I'm just mapping out the first bloom, getting that down. There's a little piece that sticks out right here. And you know, as I've said before, I'm using my reference photo really just to give me some confidence on what I'm creating, but I'm not going to be like really strict about copying it. That's just not my style. But if you want to, you know, whatever reference photo you might be using at some point, you know, it's okay. And it can give you some confidence if you're doing things exactly as how you're seeing it. If you're taking photos of things and saving them to paint later, that can be really fun and satisfying to be able to paint something that you've seen, that you've appreciated in nature, and are, you know, able to just try to replicate it. It's just a fun experience. So changing up those values, so the lightness and the darkness of the purple you're putting on, adding in more water if you want it to be lighter, adding in more pigment if you want it to be darker, angling your brush just like that. I'm working pretty quickly here because, like I said, it doesn't really matter too much, the shape, the design. Right now, what I'm most not concerned about, but interested in, let's use some more positive language, is having these little spiky bits here. So we're not just this circle or this oval, but that we have these petals sticking out, you know, just like how you're going to see with the lilac bushes or the trees. Are they trees, bushes? I would say trees, but they get really bushy, so maybe it's a combination of both. If you know, let me know in the comments. And, you know, I hope that you're enjoying this so far. We're just leaving some white space. We're dipping in, making it lighter, making it darker, more saturated paint for that darkness, you know, adding in some darker over the top. And, you know, I want to keep my colors pretty light here though, because then, you know, I can always go back in later and darken things up, and then, you know, start to make some marks that are gonna look more like those florals as well. So we'll just kind of see how it goes, dipping into whatever colors make sense for you. And, you know, I hope you're able to, you know, have some enjoyment in this procedure as well, and not, you know, feel stressed out. I always tell you, take a deep breath if you feel any type of stress, to help you get that stress relief, reminding yourself the positive thoughts that you are learning and growing and practicing and doing new things, all that stuff. Okay, so we have the blooms roughly put on there. And I think what I'm gonna do is take the number 8 round brush. We're gonna go for the green. So I have a variety of colors on my palette here. I've got a lovely sap green. There's also some teal happening here. I'm just gonna dip it into all that just to create my own little shade here. And a little more sap green. And then let's go ahead and start adding in the branch. So I'm gonna have this branch actually connect to this one here. This will be the main stem, and then this one will connect over too. And so I'm probably gonna wanna start a little bit thinner, and then we can always make it thicker as we want to. Like for example, right now I'm like, okay, I think we're gonna do a little bit thicker here. So the great thing about painting with this reference book, or one that has really large pictures, is that you can paint large. I feel like it's really helped me to paint large. I tend to go really small, I don't know why. And that's just kind of how things start to work out for me. And I'm just gonna start connecting some of these stems to the florals. We're gonna go all the way up here. It's okay if your flower has some wet spots too, no worries. It's gonna bleed together, and that's okay. That's part of the look of it. So just gonna take those thin stems. This number 8 is a thicker brush compared to like a number 2, but it can still, because of the point, you can still do some really pretty lines and really thin marks. So just connecting everything. We can even add in more florals over the stems just to create a really nice thick look. And I like how things are bleeding. I think it's just pretty, and I'm going for it. So a thicker stem here, just adding that in. And today, as we're painting and we're connecting these things, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, me and mental health, and I'm dipping in my paint, and that's okay. I'm a messy painter. I will say it all the time, and I just have to deal with it and accept it. I am not here for no mistakes. I am here to learn and to grow, and to teach you to learn and grow and paint without anxiety, okay? All right, so we talked about bravery in the video before this, and today I want to talk about confidence. What does confidence mean to you? How do you become confident in your life? How do you become confident in your paintings? You know, I always talk about how if you feel anxiety in your paintings, you most likely feel anxiety in your life. And how can we have less anxiety when we create and do art, so that we can have less anxiety, help it to kind of flow over to the other parts of our life, to feel more secure and confident and all the things. All right, so we have the basic outline of our lilacs here. Lilacs. Do you say lilac or lilac? I'm curious what you do. Let me know in the comments. Everyone says it differently. Okay, so we're going to do some leaves here. So I'm going to do a nice thin stem, and then a little thin stem, and press down, lift up, press down, lift up like that. And maybe a few more. A little staggering off of there. And then let's do a larger one. So I'm going to do one that's pretty big here. Pressing down the belly, making the C curve shape, and then filling it in the center, okay? And let's do that again. Let's do another one, just kind of coming up around over here. These are beautiful, large green lilac leaves. And then let's do another one on this other side, at least one. So as a little girl, and I'm just gonna try to curve this around just a little bit more. As a little girl, you know, I feel like we did have a lot of flowers happening and leaves and all these things and trees, but I didn't appreciate it like I would have now if I were in that same situation. And we did have lilacs growing. It was either at my house or my grandparents, and I can't remember. We lived really close to each other. But beautiful lilacs, and they smell so perfect. They smell amazing. And it's just so fun to, you know, to see them, to look at them. They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. And so I remember as a kid really loving them just because they smelled so good. You could put them in a vase, decorate the table, and they were just such a wonderful addition to the inside of your home. I'm gonna grab a little bit of this teal here just to add it in some of these spaces right there for a little bit of a shadow. And then while this is wet, I'm still going to add that in. Wet on wet technique is one of my favorites. I don't use it enough though. I really love it. I just don't use it a lot. But I love it. Is that weird? I don't know. So anyway, just it's fun to think about the florals in your life and, you know, maybe the ways in which you were influenced by them growing up, and if there were florals around you or not, and if you're here, you must enjoy painting them. So I'm curious if you have any stories about flowers growing up, you know, let me know in comments as I'm creating just really loose little florals just on top of all this. 4 little petals, creating some shadows, creating some dimension for these lilacs. You could leave it like this, but I feel like we need a little bit more color going on. So I'm just flipping my brush and adding those in, and maybe just two petals, maybe just 3 petals, just kind of being random about it. I'm not doing this for everything. So we're just, you know, just a few spaces here and there where it seems to make sense. And you could do it for all of them if you wanted to, you really could. I like the angular brush. That just kind of blended in. That's okay, because it's given me these really cool marks that I wouldn't get with a round brush. And I am loving this. So there you go. So being confident in your painting, being confident in your life, it's a skill, but it's mostly just reminding yourself that you're good at things, right? When we aren't confident in our job or in our parenting skills or in our relationships, it's because that story in our head is telling us that we're not. And we're telling ourselves that. So like, you know, most of the things I say, guys, it's pretty simple. Remind yourself of what is true, what is accurate. And if you don't feel like you can say, I am confident, because you're like, I've never been in my life, you could simply say, I am growing into a confident person. I'm becoming confident. And be confident about that part, that you're gonna get there, all right? It's really just a process of having good experiences. So if it's, for example, a job that you're doing at work and you're like, I just don't think that I'm good at that, remind yourself of the ways in which you have done well. And you can chalk up, you know, you having confidence to that situation or to your skill set. And, you know, so much of it is just the way we speak to ourselves. Does that make sense? I hope so. All right, so I've got some of these blooms on here. And, you know, for some of these, I don't necessarily want to do specific lines. So I'm going to clean my number 8 round. And I'm going to dip into the same paint colors, but I'm just going to splotch on, okay? Just going to splotch on some color. So this is not going to have a specific shape here, but I like to say, you know, I like to say blobs. We're blobbing on the color, okay? We're blobbing. And I might even add some of those colors to the places where there's white space so that we can fill that in a little bit more. So don't worry too much about the shape that you're creating. And, you know, take a step back and say, hey, I like this, or I'm not sure about that part. And just compliment yourself though, what you do like, what you see that you're enjoying. And if you're liking this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so that you don't miss out on my videos in the future. And reminding you guys, if you haven't heard, I do teach watercolor on Patreon, and that's where you can get exclusive tutorials and, you know, even live stream access and all kinds of fun bonus things. So that's linked in the profile. Get a free 7-day free trial if you want to try it out. And we have a lot of fun over there as well as over here. And I'm glad that you're here on YouTube. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just making these marks. And then I think what I want to do is just take a really, really light purple, you know, and just add a little bit more in the background. I don't want it to shine, to take over, but I do want it to be a part of the experience, to fill in some of that space. And why do I leave so much white space? Well, the reason is because I want to allow myself to have that in case I need it. Because here's the thing, you know, you cannot add it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so you can add gouache, like white paint over the top, but it's not the same. So keeping that white of the paper to me is important, just in case you might find that you need it later. Okay, just a few more little marks here. And maybe a little bit more over there. I love just adding the variation of purples, and it's easy to get carried away here too. So you might want to take a look and decide right now if you're done. And you might want to add a few more little like brush strokes on the outside, just to give a little bit more of that angular look, so that you can see on the edges that there's more of those little tiny marks, which I think are sweet. I think they add a lot to the painting. And this will just darken up in a couple places here. It's still really wet, so it's just adding in to some abstract color. And when this is all dry, you could always come back and add a little bit more too. But I do want to keep this just really loose today. I think this is kind of, you know, what I was going for. And these are pretty dry. I'm going to take some saturated paint and just go over this a little bit more, because it didn't really do a lot when I did the wet on wet. It kind of just blended in because it was pretty wet. So now I'm just going to take my brush and add some little marks for some shadows. And I love using the brush itself to create the marks of leaves, for example. It's the easiest way to create them, and it's stress-free, and it looks cool. It looks good. I think it works well. All right, so take a step back, look at your design and say, hey, is this looking like how I want it to look? I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing so far. I think I'm gonna add a few more little brush strokes out here, because I just wanted to make those a little bit fuller. So I'm gonna use both of those colors, and then just a little bit of blobbing. Just a little bit of blobbing, making it a little bit more full, and that's great. Okay, and now we're gonna get to the next bloom. Oh no, before we do that, guys, I didn't put splatter. What is happening today? We're gonna do that purple, that's kind of that reddish purple color, just tapping our brush, and you can move it here and there just to get different angles of how that paint falls and flows onto your paper. Magical. Okay, we're ready for the next one. Okay, so the second flower we're painting here from the flower book, which I love, is an iris. And here is my reference. It's large and it's not on the right side, so I can't show it to you in the video, but you have my sample here that I painted this morning just while I was watching my video premiere. And we're just gonna do it pretty easy, pretty fast. We're doing that with the same flat wash brush, and then we'll probably use the number 2. These are all Princeton Heritage brushes linked in the description. This paper now, it's also a block, and it's Legion Stonehenge. So wetting the brush, it's got some purple from the last painting, that's okay. We've got that lovely blue purple, and then that reddish purple color. Love these so much. So we are going to just do this, you know, trying to paint large by starting off with this lovely reddish purple color. So I'm starting with this piece here, and I might look at my reference and I might look at this. We'll just see how I feel, but if we have a large reference, we are going to and large paper, we're more likely probably to paint large. So I'm just doing this first top petal here. It's pretty straight coming down and then curving here, and it's thinner here than up here. And then we'll just paint that together, leaving a few white spaces if you want. I think that's pretty. It's a kind of a pretty look. We're dipping into both of these today. And so now we're going to do the second petal that's coming out from the center here. And we just have kind of what looks like a diamond shape to me. A little bit of a rounded top coming back down, diamond shape. And I don't have as much space here for the diamond, but I can go back over here. And again, allow your brush to squiggle along on the paper, and I can make it wider here. And allow it to squiggle and wiggle. These petals have movement. They're not stagnant and boring. So we want to give them the opportunity to shine. There's a few petals just like right here, kind of connected on there. And then there's one little guy that's just coming off this way. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, we'll come back in and make this a little bit thicker. I'm really into leaving a little white space today, so that's what we're gonna do. Mixing up some more of this paint. So now I want to do kind of that beard part, and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my number 8 round here because I want to start up here with some yellow, and I don't want to have to rinse my brush. It's full of purple. Yellow and purple make mud. So this is that beard part, and this has got some really beautiful yellow markings, and so I want to just start adding that in right here at the top, and then it mixes to purple. Okay, so let's see if we can put that in. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. It kind of comes to a point like that, and quickly just painting that in. So adding some water, painting that up, and then we'll be connecting with the yellow here. It's okay that it's going to make a little bit of a muddy color, no worries. But we still have that bright color at the top, which is really nice. Okay, so we've got that one going on. I might add in a little more saturated paint just for a little bit of marking, and sometimes a little bit while things are still wet. We can kind of put in some pretty cool marks. A little bit over here, and just a little bit over here too. Just trying to make it fun. Alrighty then. So I'm just set that aside. I'm going to do a side petal right here. So we're starting with our yellow again. It's gonna curling up just a little bit of yellow. And there's going to be one that has a little bit of yellow coming up over here too. So we'll just put that in there and add in, let's do this reddish, pinkish purple here. Just kind of coming along behind, adding in some of that other purple. And then we can differentiate between one and the other. We can darken up a little bit. Once things are dry, let's add a little bit of blending so that we know there's a separate petal in the back and it doesn't look exactly like the one in the front, right? We do want to make sure those are distinguished between. All right, and so then a little bit of a petal here, and then kind of wrapping around as well. So these petals are so interesting. They twist and turn and wrap around and connect so beautifully. They make me so happy. I remember my grandma having irises and growing those as well. You know, there's a lot of memories around flowers for me. My mom being a horticulturalist, and then my grandma just loving, you know, growing the florals and all that stuff. We had a lot of that we were exposed to. Really beautiful thing, and it's created more of a love, you know, for flowers for me. And I think, you know, in some ways that I may not have thought of as much growing up, but now because I'm a floral artist, these things make more sense and they're more meaningful to me. Those memories is what I mean. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this number 2 and we're going to try to make this a little more fancy. So I'm gonna give her some lines over here. So I'm going to just draw a line down here and maybe over here, and then she's gonna have some shorter ones, and I'm going really quick, curving along, you know, the side of the iris, of the flow of the petals, so that we can show the contour of the flower as well. This is all curving, so we don't want a straight line here because that's just going to be against nature, how it would look, and it's just going to look odd as well. And so just some veins, grabbing some of this. This one too could have a few here, and then also over here add some veins. Just kind of adding in just a little bit. Irises have lots. Irises, they have lots and lots of veins, so you want to definitely emulate that today. And here I'm gonna do some, and it's going to blend in, but that's okay. We can always go over it again if we need to. It's not a problem. All right, let's start with our stem next. So with our stem, I've got this lovely green, sap green color. And there's a little bit of a lime green next to it too. Adding a little of that in there too, why not? All right, so guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, because I would love to have you be a regular, and then you know when I post, whether it is just a regular community post, or maybe it's going to be a video, which I try to post so far 3 times a week. The videos, and then I do post to Patreon. Just sketching this out, people, just like that. Okay, I post videos to Patreon and all kinds of other fun stuff too, but I like to be pretty active on here, so we are growing the channel and enjoying comments and hearing from you guys. I love hearing your stories and your journeys and where you're at, and the ways that you are not only being brave but learning confidence. So, you know, that's just something to be affirmed, because we were just talking about confidence. We're going to do a bud. We're going to be confident here. We're going to add in an iris bud right now. Why not? Just to make this painting our own. So a little bit of bud. So if you are feeling confident, it's probably because you have had some success in some paintings recently. And I'm talking about confidence in painting, right? But maybe, you know, maybe we're talking about something else. Maybe it's in your job. Maybe it's in school. Maybe it's in a relationship. And I want you to just remember that. Chalk up that confidence to successes and write them down. Remember what they were. Remember what happened, so that you can turn to them when you need that boost of confidence, that you can remember what took place, what happened, and why, you know, why things went well, so that you can repeat that. It's important to repeat it so that we don't forget the good things that have happened to us. I personally am feeling confident by adding in different elements to the painting, you know, as I'm going. I do want to remove some paint here, because we're going to actually add in some darker green. And so all you do is take a clean damp brush, you remove some of that paint, clean it off, remove some more. Irises have a very beautiful encasing of green. And then also right down here, we have to add in, it's kind of this little bit of, well, it's where the iris comes out. I don't even know what to call it, but it's just kind of a fat neck. And then this green is going to come around here and wrap around. So the iris is starting to open and bud out. I do want to add another bud in here, because often you'll have like bud, 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 and then as they open, you know, you see the blooms coming out. So let's do another one, and let's do another one right here. He's just bending to the right. Is it a he? I don't know. I'm just saying. So there's the bud. I prefer to paint the whole thing, and then you can remove the paint, and then you're gonna have a nice placement. You also have a really cool kind of highlight there, but nice placement for the green part that you're gonna put in. So just dip in water, dab on your paper towel, and lift. And there you go. Let's add in our stem too. There we go. All right, so pick out a few things that you like about your painting so far. If you haven't already thought about it, I know that there are things that you can appreciate, that you can say, you know what, this is going well for me. Super glad that I'm here painting this today. Think about what that is. It's important to be positive. We're going to darken up these guys here. It's important to be positive, just light brush strokes, just a nice sketchy painterly look. And encourage yourself. Otherwise, you're not wanting to paint again. You probably won't if you don't have a mindset of learning and confidence and all the things that we're trying to talk about today. Okay, so when we're feeling confident and comfortable, we do things like, for example, this, where I say, hey, you know what? I want to add another leaf, but behind this large iris. So I'm literally just adding it in right now, following it through, and there we go. And I feel like that was a good choice. I think we needed some bounce over here, and we're just getting a lot of fun stuff happening. Results. I was a little worried when I started to add in the bud. I was like, okay, what am I doing? But I'm going to be confident and figure it out, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to also darken up this edge right here because I want to show that's really dark. Look at that, going in confidently. Clean brush, dab brush, and now we're going to just blend out a little bit. I just want to differentiate between these two petals. See how that's now receding and this one's popping forward? And I'm just going to leave the marks, I think, like that. And I want to add, let's see, let's add in some sketchy lines. See, I've switched over to other brushes now, and this is just kind of what I do. But I'm okay with that. If hopefully you're okay with that too. So now I'm going to do pretty saturated paint for these lines, just adding a little bit more. I want them to really show up, and they were just sort of blending in the background, so we're just going to add another layer, and no worries. Right here. And this is looking like a leaf now. That's okay. Darkening up these guys. I've got that. And I like the look of adding several colors. So you've got the darker purple in the background and this reddish or the bluish purple in the background, and this reddish one more in the foreground. And we're just, you know, making it all work together. We want to have a cohesive look. I just love this book. I hope that you guys utilize it. Pick up a copy. It's listed in the description of this video if you're interested, because it just really has made a difference in my life, in my confidence, in my large blooms. And you know, you just got to try things out and see what's going to work for you, because that's the only way. But there's also the flower color guide, and I think it's the flower color theory and flower color guide. And those are also great books. I believe those are linked below as well. And those are smaller, good for travel, and I use those often also for my references. All right, so how's your iris feeling today? I think my blooms are good enough that I can, what I'm going to do is try to darken them up a little bit with some color, but then I'm also going to go in with some green and hope that the two don't blend together too much. And if they do, knowing that that's okay. It's watercolor, people, right? After all, it's okay. Whoop-ah. So what I'm going to do, though, to counteract the possibility of bleeding is I'm going to go in pretty saturated with the green. If there's less water, there's less spreading, all right? And I'm just going to put that on there. And if you leave a little white space in between, just chalk it up to part of your painterly look, okay? That's it. I think that's working out. I want to add a little bit here. Okay, it's still wet, but we can still add some dimension. Just like that. And if you have any brush strokes that are kind of like dry brushing, it's a pretty cool look as well. Doing that right now. We're running out of pigment on our brush, so we're getting a dry brush effect. I love it. All right, guys, so I always know immediately what kind of splatter I want to do. With this one, I want to do some green, but lots of watery paint. Ready, guys? Here we go. Tap, tap, tap. Just trying to add it to where the petals are and all the things, guys. And that's it for our iris. I hope you enjoyed painting this with me today and learning about the flower book. So today we were able to paint the iris as well as the lilacs, and I hope you had such a fun time. We also chatted briefly about confidence and how we can remember the good things that we've done, the things that we have done well, have been successful at, write it down, remember it, remind yourself what you have accomplished, because it's going to change your mindset to a more positive space. Join me next time, and I hope that you find ways to be confident in your painting and in your life in this next week. Bye, guys.